So we are going to work on our bluff pocket or the patch pocket. You need to cut your lining, your pocket, and you need a base to work on. Just measure 11.5 by 14 inches. Cut it and please fuse the back with a wool fuse. That should serve as the base on which we work. Now when I was cutting my pattern, I noticed that there's an error at the top. It's missing about 3/8 of an inch on the top. So please fix that before you cut. So how you check is that you fold your hem on your notches. You realize that there's a portion here missing, about 3/8. This side is flashing with the side. This also needs to flash, but this side is missing. So we need to make that difference. So that 3/8, you bring this one out and then you draw a line from that to your notch, okay? That should give you the missing 3/8. So as you can see, this side is flashed, that side is flashed, okay? Now, our next step will be to attach our lining to our pocket. Place the lining on the back to make sure that the seam allowance at the top is even. In this case, we have 1 inch running all the way down and our corners are all clean and even. This is our right side and our inside. So I'm just going to mark on our wrong side. I'm going to match right side of the lining to the right side of the pocket, okay? Match the edges, right? So right side to right side, and we are going to stitch at the top 1/2 inch, okay? Make sure that your 1/2 inch seam allowance is squared at the top, okay? So we know it's 1/2 inch here, and it's ending 1/2 inch over here. Now our first step is to attach our lining to our pocket at the top at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now we need to create a hole at the top in order to turn our pocket inside out. So I'm going to leave about 2 inches at the top to allow us to turn our pocket inside out. So I start from one end. Again, I'm only using a black thread because I want you guys to see. Please try and match yours. So I'm going to stitch, back tack, I'm going to start at the end of the 2 inch, back tack, and back tack again. So now we stitch, leaving about 2 inches in the middle, okay? So now we're just going to press our lining down flat. So after pressing your lining, we need to fold our pocket and our lining together, right sides together. There's a notch at the top where your pocket line folds. Okay. So we're just going to fold on that line, right sides together. Make sure that all the corners are even and straight. Okay, you can give it a press if you want to make sure that the pocket line is flat. Okay, so I'm going to start from the top at a 1/4 inch and I'm going to stitch all around. So back tack, back tack, Make sure that you're gentle in the corners. Make sure that it's flat before you get to the top, and your seam allowance is pushed down, okay? Once you get to the top, back tack. Now we need to turn our pocket inside out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim the corners a bit so that it's easy to turn, right? And the edges are clean, okay? I'm just gonna go in a bit, clip about 1/8 off in the rounded corner. Going to do the same to the other corner. Just trim off about 1/8 off. And also put about 3 clips in the corner to give it a smooth turn, okay? Make sure that you don't clip to the thread. At least leave about 1/16 away. Okay, so I give it a few clips to make sure that the corners are turned smooth. So now I'm going to turn the pocket back inside out. Now roll the edges. Okay. Now I'm going to use a pin to just bring up my corners so it's clean and straight. If you cannot use a pin, please use your tweezer from the inside to pull those corners out. Okay, you want those corners to be smooth. After rolling the edges, please give it a nice press and make sure that your lining falls on the inside. So when you flip it this way, we don't want to see linings coming out, okay? So just give it a nice press and make sure that your lining stays on the inside and it does not bleed to the edges. After pressing our pocket flat, please check the outside to make sure that there's no lining coming out, okay? That the edges are all clean. Now we need to close this hole that we left out to turn the pocket inside out by hand. So I'm just going to hand stitch it to close that area. So I'm going to start from the top. I'm going to put my needle in about 1/8 before our hole. Push the thread in, and I'm just going to create a knot that area, just to prevent our thread from coming out. Okay. And I'm just going to gently catch the turn, which is now our facing and our lining, and I'm just going to loosely stitch closed. Right. I'm catching a little bit of the facing, and then I come and catch the lining. Okay. It's about 1/8 of an inch intervals between stitches. Okay, let's get as close as possible. Make sure that your thread is not going through the pocket itself, okay? It's only catching the facing and your lining. So I'm catching a little bit of the facing and right at the edge of the lining, right? So as you can see, you cannot see the thread. It's all hidden, okay? Okay, when you get to the end of the hole, just knot it. Okay, run a few stitch there. So run a few stitch, about 3 or 4. Create a loop, pass your needle through it, and that should knot it, okay? And then we put in our needle right back where we tacked, in between the lining and the self. Make sure you don't see it on the outside, so it's going right in between it. And I bring it out of the lining, pull it, and clip it. You want the end of your thread to be hidden on the inside to prevent it from unraveling, okay? Now our gap is closed, it's clean. Our next step will be to attach the pocket to the self. Now we are going to attach our pocket to our self. Your left side, which is the front, is shorter than your right, which is your back. So make sure that you place it well so that the longer side goes towards the back of your jacket. And make sure that the bottom of your pocket is even to the edge of your base or your hem. So I have centered it to my base. Okay, make sure that the bottom is straight. I'm just gonna put 2 pins in to hold it in place. Now I know my pocket is flat and in place. We also need to reinforce the corners. So what we are going to do is we're going to put 2 pocketing fabrics, about 2 by 2 or 2 by 1.5, any size is fine. we're going to place it in the two corners to reinforce those areas. So we're just going to slip it underneath ourselves and make sure that it's centered to the corner. Okay, so I'm going to start from the top. Okay, when you're moving it, check to make sure that your pocketing is in place. Okay, so I'm going to start from the top, right at the edge. Okay. Do not stitch on the self. So I'm stitching right on the pocket. Okay. And I'm going to edge stitch all around our pocket. Okay. Be gentle in the corners. Make sure that your edge stitching is straight. Okay, check to make sure that it's flat. So when you're about 2 inches to the end of your pocket, we're just going to slip back the pocketing underneath that corner, right? It's centered right to this corner. Okay. I'm just going to make sure that everything is flat. Just going to continue my stitch. When you get to the edge, please back tuck. Give it a strong back tack. Okay, so our pocket is in place now. It's clean. So we're just gonna go back and just trim off some of this excess fabric off, okay? Clip all excess threads. Only clipping off a bit of the pocketing. So now our pocket is ready. Just give it a nice press and we're done.